everyone, welcome to Navigating Aussie Dollar with Price Action, right? So this is our live analysis for today. So just give it about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to join us before we kickstart the session, right? At the same time, for those of you guys who are here with us on Zoom, if you have any questions, right, just feel free to type them under the chat. If you're with us via the app, right, if you're watching it via the app, if you have any chat requests as well, just feel free to type your questions under the questions chat. Okay, so I have both the chat box and Q&A box open. So if you have any chat requests, just feel free to type them there. So for today's focus, we will be covering mainly on Aussie dollar. We will be looking at chart price action, essentially trying to understand the general market structure, supply demand areas, right, and how we can incorporate all of this together. So that's the main agenda for today, right? So of course, along the way, if you have any chat requests as well, just feel free to type them under the chat box or Q&A box, and we will get to them. Okay, so with that, let's kickstart our session, right? So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, any chat requests, right? If you're watching a recording of this, just feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're with us live, either via Zoom or on the app, right, just feel free to type your questions under the questions chat. If you have any chat requests, we'll take a look at them together. So just a quick disclaimer, right? The information presented here is not to be treated as investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. So this is the main agenda for today, right? So we will be covering first, going on to the key, our economic calendar for the key economic events, right? And following which we will be taking a look at our trade setups. And of course, right, we have our Q&A session throughout. So if you have any chat requests, just type them under the questions chat. Okay, so without further ado, right, let's look at the economic calendar for a start, right? So let me just bring the screen up for that. So I hope that you can see my screen. So for economic calendar, right, usually I'll use either the one via Vantage Markets website. So in this, you can just go to Education and Tools, Economic Calendar. So this shows the majors as well as the emerging market currencies. So why it's important to take a look at this, right? It's because we want to be aware of any upcoming key events, right? Especially those that will cause a high volatility. So in this case, not sure why this seems that it's okay. It's taking a while to load, right? You can see that this is the economic calendar. It should show here, right, the impact of the events. So it has the currencies that are involved. And at the same time, you have the impact of the events. So the ones in red and the ones in orange are the ones with high and medium impact. Okay, so you can see the upcoming key economic events, right, would be mainly surrounding the euro, right? So that's pretty much for this week. And next week, right, no, or rather tonight, right, we'll be seeing a slew of dollar data as well here, right? So this is one source you can refer to. The other, it's if you want a simpler version of it, right, you can just go to Forex Factory. This economic calendar works as well. So just Forex Factory economic calendar, I'll just filter it according to the high and medium impact events. So these are the ones for today. You can see mainly around the dollar and euro. Okay, so let's move on to our charts, right? So as always, we want to start with dollar index. So let's take a look at that. Right, so on dollar index, let's see what we have. So you can see on dollar index, right, on the higher time frame first, we have this zone. So if I'm on the monthly time frame, you can see that prices are coming into this region. We're seeing price test this monthly support area here. And if I put these levels in close, you can see as well, right, this area was respected as a resistance before price broke to the upside. It's currently testing this zone. So that's what we see on the monthly time frame. If you take a look at it on the weekly, right, so on the monthly, you're seeing that consolidation, this region over here. If we take a look at what we have on the weekly time frame, you can see that on the weekly, right, this whole region, this whole pullback leg itself, prices are in a bullish market structure, right? Price If you take a look at the highs and lows of the candles, it's clear higher lows and higher highs. If I move this to a lower time frame, you can see very clear market structure as well. So the general direction, right, we covered more on bullish structure. So in an uptrend, you can see that the lows are not violated. Region here, right? The highs are potential for profit targets. So that's what we have, right? So what you see on the weekly, right, this whole bullish structure. Let me just remove the drawings, right? So what you see on the weekly, this whole move that we have, right? This region itself, it's actually showing a clear bullish market structure on your lower time frames. So with that in mind, right, now let's take a look at the weekly time frame. So if you take a look at the weekly, you can see this zone. Weekly, actually, there's not much difference on the weekly and daily. You can see on the weekly and daily, we're just seeing a push to the upside, price breaking the last high, and then a potential pullback. So let's see what we have on the daily, right? So on the daily, we are also seeing this ascending channel that prices are testing, right? So you can see this zone over here. So for an ascending channel to be valid, right, we need price to respect the resistance level at least twice over here, and also the support region twice. So these conditions, they are fulfilled, right, at this point. So that's on the daily time frame. Now let's take a look at where we are here. So you can see that price broke to the upside. It created this zone, right? Price broke structure to the upside. This is the last high that we have. If you put this level in close, you can see this clearly as well, right? Price broke to the upside. So which means that this whole leg, right, as long as price holds above this zone, right, we still remain bullish. So this is where we are right now on the daily time frame. If you highlight it based on support resistance levels, you can see that this was a zone that was previously respected as well as a support region. So price testing it as a resistance, we saw that failure, and then price broke and closed above it, retested as a support, and right now it just broke the previous structure. So on the daily time frame, right, this whole leg itself, we remain bullish still above this, right? Of course, we could see a pullback before price continues on to the upside. So this is dependent on the lower time frame. So with that in mind, right, let's move down to the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, this is what we have. You can see that price again, this leg itself, right, it's currently forming a pullback. So if you take a look at our 4 hours, you can see that we're seeing that slight pullback. And this makes sense, right? When we talk about bullish market structure and the pullback leg, notice that this pullback leg usually comprises of lower lows and lower highs, because price has to be pushing lower into a higher time frames demand area before that reversal. And you see this here, right? You can see that on the daily, right, if price breaks structure, it breaks and close to the upside. And if we do see a potential pullback into a support region, so the daily support region, it's here, right? This area. This is the next area that we can see, right? Price potentially coming into this zone. But you can see that if price does a deeper pullback into this region on the lower time frame, right, on the 4 hours, or even if I have to move down lower, you can see on the 1 hour, right, prices are in a bearish market structure. So this is currently where we are right now on dollar index, right? So these are the higher time frame zones, right? Another thing that we can do, having identified this region. So when price starts pushing into this zone, right, there are two scenarios. So one is that price could push into this region. We see that reversal. The other is that price could push much deeper into the support zone over here, right? That was tested previously. So in terms of where we could see a potential reversal, right, a big part of it is dependent on when this reversal stops, right? So let's say you focus on this region, right? This whole leg, you can see that prices are in a bearish market structure here. It's forming clear lower lows and lower highs. So when price starts coming into this zone and we do see that reversal, you can see that we will be noticing that change in market structure first happen before it continues to the upside, right? Even if I were to just look at this example, right? You look at the most recent price movements here. You can see this zone, right? So we are in a bullish structure, price pushed up much higher, and then it came probably into higher time frames supply region here. But notice what we're seeing here. You're seeing the consolidation, and then we're seeing structure, right? So price, again, it was a bullish market structure prior to this move, right? So higher lows, higher highs, and this low was formed, right? So recall in an uptrend, we're not expecting the low to be violated. If price breaks and close below it, right, then this is an indication of a potential change in trend. So using this concept, you can see that when price starts breaking and closing below this, right, this is when price starts turning bearish on the lower time frames, and it signals that we could be seeing a much deeper pullback, right, on the daily. So you can see that when price breaks and close below this region, what happens, right? Price then do a retest of this again as a resistance, and this is where we are right now. Okay, so this is what we see on dollar index, right? On the higher time frame, it still remains bullish, but at the same time, right, we could see a deeper pullback into this zone if you're on the 4 hours, right, or the daily. Okay, so this is where we are right now, right? So if we do see a respect of this region, the lower time frame has to first turn bullish. So now with that, right, let's take a look at Aussie dollar. Okay, and if there are any other chat requests as well, just feel free to type them under the chat. Okay, let me just remove all of this, right? So if you take a look at Aussie dollar on the higher time frame, on the monthly first, right, we are seeing this, we're just focusing on this region, right? Given that this extends back into August, right, last year. So this is where we are, right? So on the monthly time frame, we have price. You can see that price came into this zone, right? It's forming this bearish structure. You're seeing lower lows and lower highs to the downside, right? If I put these levels in close, you can see this very clearly as well. Okay, so that's what we have on the monthly, right? Currently at this region, right, you can see that with this latest move, right, prices are currently testing this zone. We have a potential demand, right? So I talk a lot about dojis in previous sessions, how dojis essentially, if we're to narrow down to this doji, right, this represents a range on the lower time frame. Just imagine this, right? A doji, it's basically an area where the open and close prices are relatively near one another, right? So what this shows is a struggle for direction, right? Price neither breaking above or below, right? And this high and low that we have on the monthly doji, essentially these are support and resistance areas on the lower time frame. And so let's just zoom into this doji, right? And we can take a look at the price action there. So on this doji, I'll just narrow our attention to this move, right? So this doji, you can see that if we move down to, let's say, the daily time frame, this doji essentially it's a range, right? So you have a specific support resistance level that price hovered for within a month, right? Since that was on the monthly time frame. So you have that range that price hovered within, right, for the month before a strong break to the upside, as you can see here. So if I were to move back to the monthly time frame, you can see that on the monthly, right, this is currently where we are right now. Seeing this doji, which can be a potential demand region, right? And following that doji, we're seeing a strong break to the upside. So you're seeing this bullish candle, prices break and close to the upside here, right? So this is where we are on the monthly time frame. We're sitting on a potential demand area. But at the same time, right, if price does come into this zone, you can see that this whole push to the downside, right? Just this region pushing into the demand zone, this itself would be in a bearish market structure, right? This makes sense because for price to push lower into this demand area over here, right? This potential zone, right? Price could go both ways, right? It could just reverse from here or it could just break this zone altogether. That would be dependent on the lower time frame. So when price starts coming into this region, you take a look at it on the weekly, right, or even the daily time frame, you can see that prices are in a bearish market structure. It's forming again lower lows and lower highs. If you see this on the daily, you're seeing the same thing as well. Now, if we take a look at the daily and weekly, right, this is the region where we're seeing the consolidation at the moment. You can see on the weekly, right, and on the daily here. So this zone, right, so one thing to note with both the weekly and daily region is that you can see that prices, right, it creates two things, right? So one is that price came in, we're seeing a low that's being formed, the support region here, right? So you see it on the weekly, you see it on the daily, right? The area where price rejected the zone the first time. We did a pullback and currently prices are reacting off this region again, right? It created a target on the lower time frame. Right? So on the daily, the weekly, you can see that this was the last high that caused the pullback. You can see this whole zone, right? This was the high that caused the pullback. So in a bearish market structure, right, what we have here, when prices starts forming a bearish lower lows and lower highs, right, on the weekly and daily time frame, if price breaks and close above this zone, right, then this is an indication for more upside. At the same time, it's also an indication that prices are respecting this higher time frames monthly region, right? But as of where we are right now, you can see that the break and close did not happen yet, right? So this is the high that we have on the daily. This is also the high that caused the pullback. So I'll just label this on the daily. You can see that on the daily and monthly, right, if you take the wicks of the candles, it's actually the same level. So if I take a look at it on the weekly or even on the daily, right, this is the high that caused the pullback. So this is the resistance region or the weekly target that we have. So I'll just put this as the weekly target, right, or the daily target, pretty much the same, right? So at this point, right, you can see that if price was to continue much higher here, right, this whole zone, you'll be seeing bullish market structure, right? So higher lows and higher highs to the upside within this region. So if you take a look at it, right, this whole move down from the 4 hours, right, or even the 1 hour, you can see again, right, if there's a higher time frame or higher time frames move here, right, as a potential target, then this whole zone that caused this, right, you can see again bullish structure, clear higher lows and higher highs. Now let's take a look at where we are right now on the 4 hours, right? So on the 4 hours, right, given that on the higher time frame, we could see a potential move to this region, test this zone, right? That means on the 4 hours, you can see that as long as price holds above this bullish structure, it's still bullish. So we're looking at potential support regions or demand areas that we can look to buy, right? So in this case, those are potential entries, right? So in this case, what we're trying to look for here is that we're trying to find areas that price interacted with multiple times, right? So in the same example, you can see here, right? You can see that when price consolidated, you're seeing a push to the downside, and this is again clear lower lows and lower highs. And then what happens subsequently, price starts breaking structure. It breaks and closes above the previous high, as you can see over here. And then again, you can see this pattern continues with a break and close again above the previous high, right? So what we have here is that once this pattern starts forming, right, when price starts breaking and closing, right, you're seeing that bullish market structure coming in, right? Then you can see support regions that potentially hold here. This is one. Again, how do we identify this as a potential region? This is an area where you can see price interacted as a resistance and support region, right? So this is just one, right? Of course, we are just highlighting specific zones, right? If price comes into this region, we're not taking immediate entries, but rather we're waiting for the lower time frame to turn bullish. So if we were to just narrow our focus to this region, when price came and test this zone, if you move down to the 15 minutes time frame, you can see that when price starts forming this, right, the bullish market structure doesn't come in here. So again, right, when price starts coming into this zone, you can see the bullish market structure, price forming bearish lower lows, lower highs, and then what happens? It breaks and closes to the upside. This is one, right? And then the second one, right, break and close to the upside. This was triggered by news, right, where we saw the sharp move to the downside. So this, if you put your stop loss just slightly below the low, right, this could have been stopped out. But in general, right, this is how market structure, right, in absence of news events, you can see that this is the confirmation that you can look for on the lower time frames. So with that in mind, right, let's take a look at where we are right now. So if I were to move back on to the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, this is currently what we have. You can see that the next support region that we have comes in over here. Right, so again, if I put these levels in close, you can see just how price interacted very neatly with these zones. So that's on the 4 hours, right? You can also highlight this as a specific horizontal level where basically price interacted with as both a support and resistance. That's not to say that when price comes into this region, we'll definitely see a reversal, but rather if we do see a reversal on the lower time frame, then this high that caused the pullback, right, this is a potential target. Why? Because if we take a look at it, again, we talk about market structures, right? When price starts forming higher lows and higher highs, these highs themselves in a bullish structure can be used as profit targets. The lows are generally not violated. So using the same concept, you can see again, clear higher lows and higher highs, right? So if price does a pullback into this zone, right, we have this highs that can be used as a potential target, and any reversal, right, would be first indicated on the lower time frame. So this is where we are right now on the 4 hours on Aussie dollar, right? So price could push deeper into the zone. It could come back into the next support region that we have over here, right? So a lot of it is dependent on the lower time frame structure. So you can see that on the daily, right, this region that we have on the daily, prices are again, right, it broke structure. So it broke and closed to the upside. And then right now we're seeing a test of this zone, the last high, right? So depending on how the daily close, right, if the daily closes below, right, or the 4 hours has yet to turn bearish, right, we could be seeing a deeper pullback here. Okay, so if you take a look at it on the 1 hour time frame, you can see this whole zone that we have, right? 1 hour, it's still bearish, this pullback, this leg. If you take a look at it on the 15 minutes, you see the same thing as well. Again, structure. You're seeing bearish market structure in forms of lower lows and lower highs. Okay, so this zone that we have, right? So again, bearish structure here. So on the 15 minutes, right, where we are right now, we have a resistance zone, this region, as a potential move, this zone here. right? So this region, right? So this, it's the pullback leg that we have, right? So within this move, right, what we can also do is just to identify, right, when price does a pullback into this region, this is the highest point, this is the lowest point. So if price does a pullback from here, right, we can take a retracement of this move from high to low. You can see the 50%, right? So this is a potential area, but of course, the lower time frame would always tell us the confirmation, right? Whether price would continue much higher to test this region here as the last high, or it could just reverse from here, right? All of this is dependent on the lower time frame, right? So that's the key. Those are the key levels that we have, right? Now let's take a look at other chart requests. So we have requests for Kiwi dollar. So let's take a look at that. Kiwi cat. So let's take a look at that. Right, so on Kiwi cat on the higher time frame first. So you can, if you take a look at this zone, let me just remove all of this. Right, so on the monthly time frame, you can see this region, right? So prices broke to the upside. You have a monthly region over here. That was the previous resistance region, and then price failed. Right, and then price failed. It broke to the upside, and then currently we're seeing a test of this zone. We saw a rejection of it once, but when you move down to the weekly or even on the monthly time frame, right, prices are still in a bearish structure. You're still seeing lower lows and lower highs at this point, right? So that's where we are on the weekly time frame. Okay, so at this point, right, you can see that this low has been tested once. So price came in, right, and you can see that price pushed much lower, and this low has been tested on the weekly time frame. So this is really where we are right now on the weekly, right? So again, two scenarios, right? If price starts coming into this zone, it starts consolidating, we could see a move to the upside, and this would be the high that caused a pullback. So targeting this high on the weekly. So I'll just label this on the weekly. That's what we have on the weekly, right? But understand that on the lower time frames, or rather on the weekly, right, this whole move, right, you're still seeing bearish movement, lower lows, lower highs. So if we are seeing any pullback, it has to first be reflected on your lower time frames. So if we move down, right, you can see that on the daily, this is where we are right now on the daily, right? So depending on how this candle closed, right, on the daily, we're seeing again the test of the lows here, right? So in a bearish structure, you can see that the lows themselves are usually used as profit targets, and you're seeing this here, right? So if price does a pullback, right, it comes into this zone as a potential profit target. So let's move down to the 4 hours time frame. So if you're on the 4 hours, you can see that this is currently where we are on the 4 hours, right? So if I move back to the daily, you can see that price came in, right? So we have the weekly low, which comes in over here. This is the weekly low. Price came in, right? Tested this zone. And this is really where we are right now, right? You can see that this low that was being formed. Now, if we move down to the 4 hours time frame, on the 4 hours time frame, this is what we have. You can see that price broke to the upside, right? So on the 4 hours, it's showing signs of potential reversal. You can see the price broke to the upside, and we're seeing this low over here as a potential demand. Right, so not so much on the daily, but this is the 4 hours. So this is a potential demand area. We have this whole region that caused the pullback. You can see this high, right, that caused the pullback here. So that's on the 4 hours time frame. So when price starts pushing into this zone, right, again, you can see that this whole candle that we have that is here, right, it could push deeper. It could wick this zone before it continues much higher, right? So again, it's dependent on the lower time frame. You can see on 1 hour, on the 15 minutes is still bearish. So at this point, 1 hour, 15 minutes is still bearish, right? So it will have to be dependent on the lower time frame, right? So ideally, we wait for some kind of consolidation around this zone to show that prices are indeed respecting this demand region that we have over here. Right, so once there is that, right, then we can see a potential reversal. So where we are right now, if you are on the lower time frame, you can see that it's still bearish. Right, so this on the 4 hours, right, this is a potential demand from me, right? So if price starts reacting on the lower time frame here, I think we could see a further upside. The most immediate target is always the one that caused the pullback, which is basically this 4 hours zone. You can see this high, right? So if price starts reversing from here, when it reaches this high, you want to consider trailing the position, right, or shifting your stop loss to break even. Okay. So I hope that that helps, right, in terms of the analysis on Kiwi Cat. So this is the current demand region, but if you're on the lower time frames, right, be it the 15 minutes or 5 minutes, you can see this zone, right? Price have yet to test this region, right? So this is currently where we are on this area, right? So I think price could push deeper into the zone, right? Potentially to even test this low here. So let's see. And so depending on how deep this pullback is, right, we could see a much deeper move to the downside just to test this low before we see that reversal. So again, right, at any point, right, this for price to start respecting this higher time frames demand, right, the lower time frame has to start turning bullish first, because then there's an indication that we could see a further move up. So if you're on the 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you can see that there are no clear signs of that at the moment. Right, so if you take a look at it structure-wise, on the 5 minutes, you can see again, right, lower lows and lower highs. This is the last high that we have that's formed here, right, and it still remains bearish at this point, right? So two scenarios. One is for price to break and close above this high, which caused a pullback. That's on the lower time frame, right? And the other, actually, it's just one scenario, right? So price has to break and close above the high. Okay, so I hope that answers your question on KiwiCat. Okay, if there are any other chart requests, just feel free to type them under the chat. Okay, so those are the main ones that we have for today. So I also have an announcement to make, right, in terms of our giveaway, right? So before that, right, if you have any questions, or if you want to sign up for our sessions, right, just feel free to go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars, right? You can join us via Zoom, or if you want to stream in via the app, right, you can just download the app. And if not, right, you can also email us if you have any questions, right? Just email us at support@vantagemarkets.com. Right, and finally, right, an exciting piece of news for our valued Vantage clients. You now have an incredible opportunity to win a fully paid trip worth $4,000 to the UK to attend the prestigious McLaren Gala dinner on 4th of October. The winner will be treated to a delightful 3-course meal and have the privilege of meeting the drivers from the Neo McLaren Extreme E team in a private meet and greet session. Making the occasion even more special, we have Vantage Global ESG Ambassador, Supercar Blondie, will grace the event with her presence. As a cherry on top, the winner will get an exclusive tour of the remarkable McLaren Technology Center. So how do you participate? Right, all you need to do is follow the Vantage Markets Instagram account and submit your details via a form by 17 September 2023. We will drop the relevant links, right? So you can actually scan the QR code on the website or on the screen. And one lucky winner will be contacted via email by 20th September. Okay, so all the best to all of you. And so for those of you guys, right, I see that we have no questions. Okay, you're most welcome. Right, yeah, very welcome. Right, glad that you enjoyed the analysis. So yeah, with that, all right, that's what we have for today's session. So for next week, right, we will be running our sessions, right? We have webinars on a daily basis, so you can just check out the schedule and speakers. Just go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of the session, right? Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you guys again next week.